We don't have any butter right now. We have gone through what is in our storage, and I have, I think, 1 pound of butter left. I only buy butter at Christmas because at that time it's at just under $2 a pound, because every grocery store puts butter on sale at Christmas time. So in the meantime, what I'm using is lard. This is lard we made from our pig fat, and I just take the spoon out when I'm not cooking with it, and I leave it on the stove with a towel over it, a little cloth, and the cloth is to keep bugs out. And also when I'm cooking, I will use fat from whatever meat I'm cooking with, and that works pretty well. If I was doing hash browns right now, then I would take the grease from my sausage and pour it into the next pan, and then I would put my hash browns in. So that's just kind of repurposing fat. That way it doesn't go down the drain. It doesn't need to go in a special jar or anything. I'm just using it while I'm cooking with it. And I prefer the pardon me. I prefer the lard to the tallow. The tallow has a very strong flavor of hamburger. See, I just have a little bit on my spoon, put it in the bottom of the pan. And also duck fat is good. We enjoy duck fat. We'll see if we can do this one-handed. And those are my 2 favorite oils. They just don't taste as gamey. And so for how to make candles from tallow or from sheep fat makes the best candles, much better than beef, and much better than lard as far as candles go. This is duck grease. It is what I drain off when we cook duck or goose, and you just pour it off because it takes a long time to cook duck and goose. They're quite greasy. And in France, this is a delicacy. They put it in jars for the winter and save it. And so when we butcher a cow, we take the fat and we render it and purify it. And then we use it I use it to weatherproof and soften leather. It's a good leather conditioner. And I make candles out of it. And I also, I don't know if you can see that, I also try to preserve eggs with it. And I'm really nervous to open it right now. It's going to turn out so gross. Ah! Really nervous. Okay, so I'm just going to drop it because I really don't want my face that close to it. Okay, so far there's no explosions. It appears that the whites... Oh! There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't even smell bad. Okay, so I'm going to show this to you because it's miraculous. These were laid in the spring. I want to show this to you. There's nothing wrong with it. I was seriously thinking it was going to be completely gross. So, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't smell bad. There's nothing wrong with it. So, you can see that what you do is you warm up your tallow, and sometimes I just warm it up in my hands, and then I spread it on really good. I just grease the egg, and then I store them in this, and you can see they're... This is tallow, which is beef fat. It has been up in the top of the shoe closet, unrefrigerated. It doesn't matter that it looks like it has residue. That's just dirt that's been picked up from claws. That's not actually from the tallow. So you take an old cloth, dip it in your tallow, and rub it in like any other leather conditioner you would use. And then you let it sit overnight, and this does wonders for sealing and waterproofing your boots, especially down here on the threads. And that is how I waterproof my boots, and it is so stinking cheap. And tallow doing boots is the only thing I use my tallow for because it smells beefy and it leaves that smell in whatever food you cook it with, so I use tallow for leather preservation. Today we are making tallow candles. We're using our wood burning stove, and I think it's an Elmira, Anyway, just a warning, this looks very untidy and nasty, and just by nature of what it is kind of untidy and nasty. What you're doing is you're purifying big chunks of fat, and the longer you cook it, the more it dries out and the oil comes to the top. And what I do is I have another pan next to it that I put the clarified oil in, so you see it'll rise to the top. I take it off. The little chunks in there will continue to clarify in this pot, but it just makes there more room. You can kind of see how much you have left. And what I do is, what's left over in the end is membrane and meat with a little bit of oil in it. And what I do is I put it in a feed bucket out in the backyard for the chickens. The fat helps them in the winter because bugs and everything have fat and protein. So what they're getting out of it is a little bit of fat and lots of meat. And because it's cold outside, it freezes. So it's just like a little suet block for the chickens. And when it's finished, this is what it looks like. I just use rickrack ribbon, and we make candles out of it. And it has a nice bright light. It helps a little bit if you can freeze it. As long as the oil's not really hot. Don't put it in the freezer when it's hot, but when it's cooled off a little bit. And yeah, you trim the wick so that it's just about ½ an inch above the oil when it's solid, and it makes a nice light. And if you stick your nose right in it, it smells. Good girl. It smells like fat. But when it burns, you can't smell anything, and it works really good. It's like an emergency light. You know, it would last a long time.
I'm going to help you.